There's a lot of talk around the event, the flood, and what happened leading up to the flood, and why God destroyed the world by flood, and so on. But I want to take us today to what happened a little after the flood, because quite often we find that coming out of a crisis, coming out of a situation, sometimes we focus so much on the crisis, like we're thinking about the mark of the beast, and we focus so much on that event that we don't think of after the event. And I want to take us now to after the flood. And so we know about the flood story, we know what went on there and so on. I'm going to Genesis chapter 7, and I'm picking up at verse 20. It says, the waters prevailed 15 cubits upward, and the mountains were covered. So we know that that's a part of the flood. Verse 21 says, all flesh died. So this is what the flood did. The flood destroyed the lives of every living thing on the earth. Everything except those that were in the ark. In verse 23, every living substance was destroyed. So not only the animals, but also the plants. Everything was destroyed. The earth was turbulent. Everything was ripped apart. Huge earthquakes ripped the earth. And so the very surface, the dirt, we know that when we have flood rains, we have landslides and so on. Well, this covered the entire earth. So the whole earth's surface was scraped, and everything died. Both man, cattle, creeping things, fowl of the heaven, they were destroyed from the earth. And Noah only remained alive, and they that were with him in the ark. And the waters prevailed upon the earth 150 days, 5 months of water covering the entire earth. Must have been quite a sight as they were in the ark, just floating on the water. They didn't have an engine on the ark, they didn't have sails, they were just there floating. And when you think about it, to be in a vessel like that, for rain to be falling, for you to be floating on top of that, and you cannot direct where you are going, you truly have to trust God. You truly have to say, where He leads me, I will follow, because it is only God who kept them alive in that ark. I'm going to go over to chapter 8 now. Verse 15, God spake unto Noah, saying, go forth of the ark, thou and thy wife, thy sons' wives, and bring forth with thee every living thing that is with thee, of all flesh, both of fowl and of cattle, and of every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth, that they may breed abundantly in the earth, and be fruitful and multiply upon the earth. Noah went forth, and his sons and his wife and his sons' wives with him. So everybody came out. Now there was dry land. Now the waters were abated, and they could walk upon the earth. And every beast, every creeping thing, and every fowl, and whatsoever creepeth upon the earth after their kinds, went forth out of the ark. And verse 20 now says, Noah built an altar unto the Lord, and he offered sacrifices there on the altar. And in verse 21, the Lord smelled a sweet savor, and the Lord said in his heart, I will not again curse the ground any more for man's sake, for the imagination of man's heart is evil from his youth, neither will I again smite any more everything as I have done. And he said, while the earth remains, seed time and harvest, and cold and heat, and summer and winter, and day and night, shall not cease. So God made a commitment here that He's not going to again destroy the world in that way. And He said, as long as the earth remains, you're going to be able to plant and reap. You're going to have the seasons. You're going to have day and night. Things are going to be normal as long as the earth remains from now on. That was God's commitment to Noah and to the rest of us as humanity through Noah. And so today I want us to pause on that and recognize that there is implicit in that a promise to us that God says when you plant, you will reap. And it's just amazing how society has changed the human mind. So few people today around me plant. Everybody depends on the things of Egypt, on the things of the world to survive. They depend on doing other things, but not planting. But God made a promise here that seed time and harvest, cold and heat, summer, winter, day and night will continue. There is a certainty in the things of nature because God has promised that that will be so. And therefore it is a fact that if you plant, you will reap. But I'm continuing over now to chapter 9. And in chapter 9, verse 1, God blessed Noah and his sons and said unto them, be fruitful and multiply and replenish the earth. You have heard those words before. You heard those words that God spoke to Adam and Eve in the garden. When God made man originally, these are the exact words he gave to them. He said, be fruitful and multiply and replenish the earth. And now God has reset the earth. He has wiped out a whole generation, close to 8 billion people. Not to mention how many animals, plants and everything. He has reset everything because there was corruption, because the heart of man had become so evil and corrupt that they were actually modifying. Well, this is not written in the Bible, but based upon some evidence, it is believed that man had reached a point where they could do genetic modification, where they were changing the very nature and they were affecting even the thinking processes. And so God had to reset to keep things fair, to allow humanity to be able to choose for themselves between his kingdom and the kingdom of the devil. Because you see, a zombie has no choice. A zombie has to do just whatever the person who programs him to do. A robot has no choice. And if mankind had reached a point where they were creating robots and zombies, then you had a type of humanity that didn't have choice. And God wants all humans to be free to choose. That is the essential ingredient of choice that God wants to retain. And so he reset the earth so that mankind would still be able to choose. And it is believed that by that time the earth had round about the same number of population, the same size population as we have today, close to 8 billion or just over 8 billion. And I just want to say that what we see happening today is that again humanity is trying to modify humanity. I'm seeing a lot about AI. I'm seeing a lot about robots. I'm seeing a lot about humanoids. You're getting a lot of genetic modification taking place. They're changing not only plants and animals, but it is believed that they are even interfering with the genes of humanity. And we are getting back to that point where humanity may not be able to make rational choices for themselves. And when that happens, God has to bring it to an end. But God said to Noah and his sons that they should replenish the earth. Go out, have children, and populate the earth. That's what he said to them, because it was a restart. And he again said in verse 2, the fear of you and the dread of you shall be upon every beast of the earth. In other words, man is going to be the dominant creature on earth. Every other one is going to be subject to man. So it's very similar to what he said in the Garden of Eden. There was a reset taking place here, right? Then in verse 9, he said, behold, I establish my covenant with you and with your seed after you. Now God was establishing a covenant with Noah and with every living creature that is with you, of the fowl, of the cattle, of every beast of the earth with you, from all that go out of the ark to every beast of the earth. I will establish my covenant with you, neither shall all flesh be cut off any more by the waters of a flood. He's making this commitment. Neither shall there any more be a flood to destroy the earth. And God said, this is the token of the covenant that I will make between me and you and every living creature that is with you for perpetual generations. I do set my bow in the cloud, and it shall be for a token of a covenant between me and the earth. God established the rainbow for a covenant between him and the earth, that he would not anymore destroy the world by a flood. Verse 14 says, it shall come to pass when I bring a cloud over the earth, every time that a cloud comes, that you will see the bow in the cloud, and I will remember my covenant which is between me and you and every living creature of all the earth. So we had a lot of rains these last few days, and there were some minor floods, but God did not destroy the world by flood. And it is just such a tragedy and a travesty that this token of a covenant, the rainbow, has been hijacked by the very people who are seeking to destroy the world. Because the very people who are seeking to nullify what God said here to Noah, when God said, be fruitful and multiply and replenish the earth. You can't do that in homosexual relationships. Homosexuals cannot be fruitful and multiply and replenish the earth. And God set the bow to say, this is my covenant, that I am not going to destroy the earth. I am going to make the earth replenish and full. But we have gotten back to a point in time when humanity is trying to defeat God and to dispute what God has put for us. And to add insult to injury, they have hijacked the very token that God gave to man as a covenant. The rainbow. And I want us to recognize, brothers and sisters, that what we see happening around us is the natural consequence of man separating from God. When Cain separated from God, when Adam separated from God in the Garden of Eden, when he sinned and separated from God, the result was pretty soon Cain killed Abel. And then after that, man became so devious that they began to get to this point of deviance. It is believed and it is stated that homosexuality had become rampant at that time. While there is not a lot, there's nothing in the Bible that says that. It says that the heart of man had become only evil continually. And we read in Romans chapter 1 that when man separates from God, when man rejects God, it leads them to get to the point of homosexuality. And so today we see around us this kind of rampant homosexuality. We see where they're trying to push it on humanity. And it is saying to us, and it's just coincidental that we have almost the same population that was there at the time and at this time. So the more man advances along the lines of humanity, it is the worse they become in terms of their relationship to God. And that's what we see happening today. We see where man has separated from God, and he is heading down that path of no return. Many people have gotten there already. And it has so infiltrated even the religious organizations. Even inside of Christendom, we have homosexual pastors now. We are talking about inclusivity. Of course we want to include and save people from their wrongs, but not to include them with the wrongs. We must treat sin as sin. We must treat the aberrations as aberrations and turn people to God and recognize God's plan for humanity. In verse 20 it says, Noah began to be an husbandman and he planted a vineyard. So after the flood was over, And they came out. Noah planted a vineyard. And he drank of the wine, and he was drunk. So we know this was not grape juice. This was fermented grape juice for it to be able to get him drunk. So he was drunk. And he was so drunk that he was uncovered. He threw off his clothes and he lay down naked in his tent. And Ham, the father of Canaan, saw the nakedness of his father and told his two brethren without. We know Noah had 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. And Ham saw his father's nakedness and told his brothers. And Shem and Japheth took a garment and laid it upon their shoulders and went backward and covered the nakedness of their father. And their faces were backward, and they saw not their father's nakedness. There's a lot of speculation and talk about what could have happened here and what Ham did. The truth is that in those days it was really considered great disrespect for a child to see their parents naked. So if you see it, you should immediately avert your eyes and try to cover it up or hide it. So Shem and Japheth did what was the correct thing. When Ham told them that their father was naked, it probably was in a not mocking kind of a way. For it to be something bad, it probably was he was mocking his father. And say, hey, daddy's naked inside there, and whatever, he's drunk, he got drunk and he's lying down naked. So the other two went in and covered him up. Verse 24 says, Noah awoke from his wine and knew what his younger son had done unto him. He had shamed him, embarrassed him. And listen now, this is a funny verse. Verse 25 says, Noah, talking about Noah, it says, and he said, cursed be Canaan. But what did Canaan do? Canaan didn't do anything to Noah. It was Canaan's father, Ham. But he said, cursed be Canaan. A servant of servants shall he be unto his brethren. And he said, blessed be the Lord God of Shem, and Canaan shall be his servant. God shall enlarge Japheth, and he shall dwell in the tents of Shem, and Canaan shall be his servant. So here is Noah. Ham exposed him. But God is cursing Ham's son, and says Ham's son is going to be a servant of both Shem and Japheth, because Shem and Japheth did the right thing. Well, how does Canaan get into this, you might ask? I'm going to put two things to us. One, you remember later on when God told Abraham to go to Canaan, this was where the Canaanites dwelt. And still later, when the children of Israel left Egypt, God promised them Canaan, the promised land. This was where the Canaanites dwelt. So the Canaanites here were the offspring of Canaan. And it said that they should be servants. So to an extent, what this is suggesting is that Canaan, the son of Ham, would be free game for the children of Shem and of Japheth. And you know, I don't want to go too much into the writers and the translators, but there is a thought that in a way this was used to justify what happened in Canaan, justify the children of Israel taking over Canaan. But I want to go a little deeper now into what could have caused Noah to curse Canaan, because Canaan did nothing to him. But you know, the Bible tells us, and not just the Bible, science tells us that parents influence the behavior of their children, one, by genetics, and two, by socialization. And if Ham was a person who had a certain kind of mindset, it is very likely that his offspring would come with a similar kind of mindset, whether by genes, by nature, or by nurture. And so Noah, in my estimation, was not putting a curse upon Canaan, but he was giving a statement of what he thinks is going to happen to Canaan as a result of his father being this kind of a person. So if you have a father who is a thief, it is likely that at least some of the children may become thieves because they get accustomed to that. And so you find that things are passed on from generation to generation. And because Ham was this kind of a person that he could disrespect his father in that kind of a way, then I think Noah was saying, you know what's going to happen to your child? Because of what you have done, because of what you are doing, because of the kind of person you are, your child is going to fall into a curse. Not that Noah was making anything happen. Noah didn't have the power to make Canaan a servant of servants. Noah was declaring what he knew based on his understanding. And so what happened here now is that Canaan lived out what his father had taught him, what his father passed on to him. It's very important for us to recognize as parents, those of us who have children, it's very important for us to recognize that we have great influence on our children. And we are cursing our own children by our behavior, by our actions. Imagine they had just come out of a flood. They had just come out of a situation. Ham was there. His wife was there. And they saw what God took them through. And so soon after, well, it wasn't very, very soon because there was time for the wine to ferment. But maybe a year, maybe 2 years later on, I don't know. Sometime later, after Noah had planted the vineyard and the wine was long enough that it fermented that it could make him drunk, Ham's thinking had left God so much that he could disrespect his father. You know, in the Ten Commandments, when it says, honor your father and your mother, that your days may be long upon the land which the Lord thy God giveth thee. This is a message for parents as well as a message to children, to offspring. When children disrespect their parents, they are cursing themselves. But they are also cursing their own children. So the disrespect that Ham gave to his father would have impacted his own children, his own son Canaan. And so it happened. I don't know what psychological impact it had on Canaan. But Canaan, you see, you become a servant when your mind is a servant's mind. Of course, sometimes people can overpower you and make you into a servant or a slave for a while and so on. But, you know, many of those people who became slaves, they were so strong and resistant to it. That is why we have the Maroons in Jamaica today. They fight against oppression. They fight against being subjugated. But there are some who they just like to be servants. They like to be told what to do, where to go, when to go. There are people who are in their minds servants. And Canaan became a servant partly because of what his father did to his father. And so there are these lessons for us today, brethren. Now, here is what I want you to think about. One, so soon after this dramatic event, Ham forgot the way God had led him. We have nothing to fear for the future except as we forget the way the Lord has led us in the past. We need to keep reminding ourselves of the things that God has done for us. And every time we look back in our lives, every time we meet a new situation, we need to remember what God has done for us. We all come on and we give testimonies. We have experience with God. Don't forget those experiences. They are there for your own strengthening. They are there for your own upliftment. Don't forget them. They are for you. Of course, they strengthen the brethren too. Keep on remembering the way God has led you. And when you meet upon a situation, for most of all, a situation that may affect or hurt somebody else, remember God. Remember who you are. Our hearts should be to protect others. Worse, our own family. Charity begins at home. That's what Peter says. Charity begins at home. Your first responsibility is to those of your own household. And so you owe respect and love and appreciation and care to those of your own household, because that is in what God created first as the first fundamental institution of society. I know sometimes, there are family members who put outsiders above their own family. They put the outsiders as more important. They will do more for outsiders than their family. I've seen it happen over and over again. For some reason, you're a part of a family, but somebody outside has greater influence on you. And sometimes not one person, but several persons. They have greater influence. And so your family takes second place. The fundamental institution of society is the family. If the foundation is bad, then the entire building is going to be bad. If we don't keep our families secure and stable, then the society cannot be any better. Our church cannot be any better. And so Ham was actually tearing down the foundation of his own home. And therefore, this would have impacted Canaan. And then, as parents, I don't know what led Ham to that. I don't know what it was. I mean, Noah getting drunk, clearly, he made an error. He did something wrong, getting himself drunk like that. And the Bible cautions us against that kind of thing. It says we should not be deceived by strong drink. We should not drink to excess that we're going to be drunk, because there's an example of what happens. Oh, he went and he sprawled out himself naked. When we do things like that that affect our thoughts, our mind, our consciousness, we make ourselves naked. We not just physically naked, but emotionally naked, spiritually naked, psychologically naked. We are without any covering. One mistake led to another, and we see where that has impacted society all the way down. Right now in Israel, there is war in that very same land where the Canaanites dwelt. Sometimes we can't see the future. We don't know where our actions will lead. I imagine if Ham could have seen down the line to see what would be happening today, to see what would have happened in latter years, he would have thought twice about what he did. But sometimes we just give in to our little emotion. Something fly up in your head for a moment and you do it. We've got to submit ourselves to God. We've got to be there. To be humble, to be patient, and not hasty in our actions. And above all, remember, respect for each other, love for each other will make us do the right thing all the time when Christ dwells in us. So, after the flood, there's a flood coming, brothers and sisters. It's not going to be a flood of water anymore. The earth has gotten to a point now where it's going to come to an end. What I want us to do is to examine ourselves and to see what will be our status. Where will we be after the flood? After this flood? After the flood of destruction after this earth is destroyed. God said, as long as the earth remains, seed time and harvest will be there. But there is coming a time when the earth, as we know it, will be destroyed. My question is, where will you be after the flood? May God grant that every one of us will be safe and secure in the new earth, where again seed time and harvest, summer and winter, day and night will remain, not to come to an end again, but this time through the ages of eternity. I want to be there. What about you?